that's affecting many of us.
Yes, yes, it is. Annie, I wanted to start with a question. What do you think it means to have a good relationship with food?
A good relationship with food. Okay, I think this is very relative, depending on, there are many types of perspective, but I'm going to talk about my perspective, my vision about it. What is a good relationship with food for me? And this is what I called yogic eating or yogic conscious eating. That's what I call, what for me it's the perfect example of a relationship with food. When we see food and eat with an intention and a purpose. And this intention and purpose, it's for me, it's to have joy or some sort of pleasure as well. And for health maintenance, and also that's something that supports my spiritual evolution, myself growth. So for me, a really good relationship with food is something that support myself in these three aspects: joy, health, and spiritual growth. And it is the fact also that I am in the command, so I decide, I make the choice of when and how I want to eat, and rather than being under, the influence of my emotions, where I feel that I have no choice, because I've been there, I have no choice, and I have to eat. It's like, like an eating addiction.
Yes, that's what I wanted to ask you too. What do you think is an addiction? What would you consider an addiction?
Well, to have an eating addiction, I normally ask people these three questions. First of all, if you feel concerned, for example, let's talking about food. Yeah, but you can actually use this example for any type of external thing, substance, or even actions. The first question is, do you crave it? It's something that you crave. You feel like you want to have it all the time, or certain times, certain seasons, or certain situations you feel like you need something. Do you crave that thing, that food? They can be food in general, or it can be sugar, or it can be salt or fat. It doesn't matter. And then you have this question, the first question. And the second question is, does it bring any sort of emotional relief for you? Do you, for example, if you're feeling stressed or anxious or even sad, bored, whatever, it's the feeling that for you, when you do that thing, when you eat that food, do you feel that there is a relief in that emotion, even if this relief lasts for few seconds? Because sometimes it happens, it only lasts for a few seconds, or
that's what
it can last for yeah. And it's funny because some people don't see the emotional relief there, because when we eat, especially if the binge eating, it's so intense, there's two set of emotions in place, of perceptions of feelings. One is that relief, but the relief it's there, but it's kind of underneath the guilt and the shame as well. When we eating and feeling guilt already that you're eating those, for example, that piece of cake or even the whole cake. So you're feeling guilty, but at the same time, there is a relief there. That's why you're doing that. So sometimes it's hard to see the emotional relief. And it's really with, bringing awareness that we can, practicing awareness, that we can realize the emotional relief is there. And this is the second question. Does it bring emotional relief? And then the third question is it harmful for you in the long term? And if it's harmful for you in the long term, again, some things are very obvious. Like we all know that eating a lot of sugars in the long term, it's not ideal. It's not good for our health. And so some other things we don't really know because we just need to educate ourselves about it. So I invite you, if you're not sure, really educate yourself about the substance or the action or whatever it is for you that you're concerned about having an addiction. But if the answer is sorry, if the answer is yes for these three questions, yes, I crave it, yes, it brings me some emotional relief, yes, this is harmful for me in the long term, then yes, you have a an addiction, or it could be an eating addiction. I prefer calling eating addiction rather than food addiction, because it's
Okay.
more about the action, is more about the whole conditions, not about the food
Uh-huh.
itself.
Okay. And Annie, do you think there are some special foods that are addictive? Like you mentioned sugar, for example, or you think it is something personal?
It's never about the substance or about, like when I say the substance, can be the sugar, again, any type of food, or if it's alcohol or any type of drug, whatever it is, it's never about the substance, it's way more disease. And this type of conversation is very important because we really need to change how the approach of of how we see addictions. Is you really need an education around it, because we being educated by society to think that things are addictive, when in fact what allows the addiction to happen is a whole background behind it. It's way more complex than that. Now, I can explain how addiction works and try to explain it a very simple way, because I think it's hard to explain that why food is not the problem otherwise. So I can explain that now if that's okay for you.
Yes, yes, please.
So the first information is very important to know. Behind any eating addiction, there is always a trauma behind. There's always a trauma. And I'm going to explain what is the trauma. So, for example, imagine that you are in a very dangerous situation, and your body is designed to, when you face a dangerous situation, your body is designed to create a whole internal environment to deal with that dangerous situation that we call stress arousal. And this stress arousal, when happened, it really changed the chemistry of that happens inside the body. It changed the biochemistry. So there are certain hormones that are released, like the cortisol or adrenaline or noradrenaline. They're neurotransmitter, they are activated as well. Why? And because it's preparing the body to take action. No, we could fight the thing that is dangerous. We could run away. We could even faint, depending on what's our individualities. So the thing is, the body is preparing ourselves to create a reaction according to what it perceives to be dangerous, because this is very individual to everyone. When the dangerous situation happens and passes, when it ends, it's important that we know how to help the body to finish this process of stress arousal. So if we have this internal state in our body being activated, if we don't allow the body to end this state of stress, what happens is the stress will get trapped in the body. It will get imprinted in our neurotransmitter circuits, will get imprinted in our hormones cycles. So When this is trapped in the body, it keep happening in our life many over and over again. Some other situations that happen late in life that is not even that dangerous, we start to perceive it as something dangerous for us. And this is all happens in an unconscious level. Okay,
Yes,
it's not something that we think. We might sometimes it's a conscious, sometimes it's unconscious, but mostly an unconscious level that this happens. And the trauma is that. The trauma is the stress state in the body that got trapped and it wasn't processed. And it reflects later in life as with simple situations. Now, this is very individual, and most of how these traumas happen, it normally happen when we are kids, in childhood.
yeah,
And because as a childhood, we depend completely on the external environment to create our perception of the world. We depend completely on our caregivers to feel safe, to have our basic needs met. And because we depend so much on the external, we also depend, we depend on the external to process these emotions. Now, not that we had, I don't know, like bad parents, that we were mistreated when we were kids, but they were doing their best. But we are all learning, as adults, we are all learning here. And situations happen, we don't even, I don't know, like, I think most of the parents don't really know how to process a traumatizing situation, and for a kid, sometimes we see as something very simple with an adult eye, but for a kid, it's very, very, you know, impactful. There's an impact in the health and how the brain works. So, and not just that, it also comes from when the mother is pregnant, if the mother been through a lot of stressful situations, when the baby's in the womb, it's how it's forming all the systems in the body. So it depends a lot on the mother's perceptions of the world. It can be from our ancestors, from society, from the culture we live. So the trauma comes from many, many places. There's not one single point, and it's very individual for everyone. Now, this trauma, the nature of human being is to, always look for homeostasis. We're always looking for a way to feel good. No one is looking for a way to feel bad, even though it seems like we look for a way to feel bad, underneath it is we want to feel good. And how we look for it, we find things that fill the gaps for us that's missing inside. If we're not feeling good, because there's something missing inside, because the nature of human being is to feel complete. We have everything that we need to feel complete, but we need to give the right conditions for that. Now, and through experiences in life, we find the things that bring us pleasure when we are feeling some pain. We have some pain points, we have some, we suffer from different reasons. And when we find something that gives us pleasure, that fills the gap, we get attached to it, especially if that gap wasn't ever filled before, especially if we never experienced otherwise, And food, because it's such a important part of everyone's life, it's something that it's daily. We eat, most of us eat daily. We have constant contact with foods. It's such an easy way to find pleasure in foods and fill those gaps, because we are not trained we haven't processed the traumas in the body yet. We haven't trained ourselves to be resilient. And then we start to create to create tolerance and to create dependence on food, on the eating, whatever we like to eat. So when this let me know if I'm just talking a lot here. I'm just throwing
No, no, that's
information.
okay. No, I like it very much, and this reminds me to a phrase you have in your Facebook account, I think, that says that food is not therapy or something like that.
Yeah, food is not
And I like it
therapy.
very much because that's what we sometimes tend to do, like to use it as a
Yeah,
therapy.
yeah, yeah. And it's not something to be blamed, you know, because it's something that is natural. It is very important to, I think, to highlight here that this is natural. If we are wired, our brain is wired to think, to go for food, for comfort, and for, you know, soothing emotional relief. This means that our brain is working how it should work. It's working, it's normal. Now, if we want to change the scenario, what we need to do is to rewire the brain, you know, to think, to create an internal environment where we are self-sufficient. We don't depend on external things to feel complete or to feel happy or to feel less anxious, you know. So that's the ideal if you want, we really want to step out of that suffering cycle. But it's a natural thing because a lot of people think there's something wrong with me, you know, why am I this way? This is, everyone is like that. Everyone is wired to look for pleasure. But once we find a way to create the right conditions for us to thrive inside ourselves, then we won't see the need to go for food. And then we look at food, we start to look to food with a different eyes, for sure.
Yes. Annie, would you like to tell us a little bit what your meals consist on?
Yeah, my meals, well, um, depending on some times of the year, I do have like some cleanses that I like to do. But like at the moment, for example, I practice intermittent fasting for a few years now, and at the moment, and I was able to do that only after I really start to work with my emotional eating. You know, something that um, I suggest just go start a radical intermittent fasting because that's not gonna help. This actually sometimes make things worse. So because we need some level of resilience, you know, before starting with a more advanced intermittent fasting. But at the moment, my intermittent fasting is a window around 20 by 4. So I eat within 4 hours in the day, and then all the 20 hours I fast. So it means that, you know, it might seem like too radical, but actually I eat normally from midday to 4 p.m. And I have, between the time I'm fasting, I have teas and I have my lemon water and I have other things that, you know, but I don't feel, I don't feel hungry and my body's trained for that.
So sorry, Annie, the rest of the time you drink, but you don't eat. Is that the way?
I drink teas and lemon water, things that
Okay.
there's no caloric content in that.
Okay.
The body can I still drink some herbal teas, you know, some things that supports the nervous system and other systems of my body that helps to cleanse the body, but I actually don't like to drink, for example, a smoothie or a milkshake, you know. And I like to have as my first meal of the day fruits, because fruits are highly cleansing for the body, is the best way to detox the body and really keep the body in a healthy shape. And it's really good at absorbed by itself. No, it's not. I mean, sometimes I mix fruits with nuts, but I try not to. So I have tried to have just fruit by itself. It's a little bit of sometimes granola or almond meal, but the major is the fruit.
Okay.
Like and including diversity. Diversity is always key in the meals. And for dinner, it depends, because I normally have two main meals, and the dinner around 4 p.m. or around 5, it depends, you know, because I like to eat with my partner, and he can't, yeah, he arrives at home a little bit later sometimes. Yeah, and at dinners, I normally make a, a big salad, mostly raw food, but I have some roasted veggies because I'm vegan, so I do not consume animal products. Um, and I think, yeah, I see this as, you know, the most healthy way of eating for my body. It works perfectly, and yeah. And this is the true. And between these two main meals, I have some snacks. Sometimes it can be some veggies, or it can be um, some like veggie sticks, or it can be nuts, or, you know. But I don't normally feel hungry in between. But I have juices as well. You know, lots of juices: celery juice, vegetable juice, and yeah, these are normally my go-to. It's not a rule, you know. Sometimes I have soup, sometimes I have like a stew or a smoothie, and yeah, so that's normally what I have.
Okay. And do you find it easy to eat that way, or it was a hard way
I,
to get there?
I wasn't. I don't think it was a hard way to get there. I think it took. I did it gradually. It was really a gradual process. um like when I decided to really address my eating habits, I first of all start to address the fact that I want to cook more at home, because I love cooking, you know, but because of the nature of the work I was doing before, and I was having a lot of takeaway and processed foods when I was, you know, adolescent, or in my past, my my eating habits were terrible. I didn't even think about the food that I ate would help me to thrive in life. I didn't have this mindset at all. But start studying, get into more spirituality, and I realized how much food actually was affecting me depending on what I ate. And then I started to pay more attention to that. And the change happened gradually. So first I stop eating processed food and getting takeaway, and start cooking more. And I don't know, maybe I think it was, I don't remember, like 10 years ago, I became vegetarian. And then 2 years later, I became vegan, I think. And but it's still having a lot of processed food and takeaway. So no, it's not because if you're vegan or a vegetarian that you eat healthy. That's a big myth. But because you can have, especially, you know, like where I live in Australia, there's so many options of in the
Yeah.
supermarket of processed food for vegan. There's everything you can imagine. So I started cooking more for myself, and I started with the 12 intermittent fasting, you know, 12 hours period, that I think is reasonable for anyone to start, and I think is actually healthier, because for anyone that didn't never considered intermittent fasting before, because considering that we sleep for 8 hours, let's say, and it's not, I don't know, I don't think it's ideal eating before going to bed, because during the sleep we want our body to do its job of regenerating and keeping the maintenance. When we eat, we spend so much energy creating in order to process the food, especially if the food it doesn't come from natural form. It's natural form, you know. So if we eat just before going to bed, that's not gonna give us a good sleep. And if we don't have a good sleep, the next day is not. There's a higher chance for us to not have a good day. So having this at least 2 hours of not without food before going to bed, I think is ideal. I even prefer to have 3 hours, because depending on what I eat,
Yeah.
and considering that waking up in the morning, eating, if you keep like a spiritual practice, let's say a meditation, or even like an exercise of a yoga, And we want to, if it is in a spiritual practice, we don't want to do this with food, because the body will benefit more from your practice if you do it on an empty stomach. So if you have like a couple of hours without food in the morning, so let's say you wake up at 7 and your first meal is at 9, I don't think it's that, is that too much. So it's like 12 hours, 12. I think it's a good way to start. And after that, I saw how much energy I had because of my intermittent fasting, how much my body was benefiting. And I studied, I read books about it, and then I decided to step into a 14 hours, 14-10, and then I will jump to a 16 period without food, and then now 20, what I think for me it's ideal. So it was gradual. And the same thing with the food, with the quality of the food I was eating. It was very, just going to more natural state of the food. The less processed the food, the better the body is going to get the benefit from it. So it wasn't hard, but it was a process. Yeah.
Okay. Annie, what would you tell us to try to avoid addictions? What can you tell us? Maybe some tips or something you would like to tell us?
Yeah. So I hear, so maybe first start saying something that I was thinking about that yesterday. I have this Facebook group, as I mentioned before, Escape Emotional Eating Through Yoga. And there's some required questions when we get into to be able to be accepted in the group. And one of these questions is, what do you want from this group? And a lot of answers that I see there is like, I want to avoid eating too much. I want to avoid feeling this, what I'm feeling at the moment. I want to avoid anxiety, or I want to avoid eating addiction. So I want to just start by a quick note about the word avoid, which has its place, in our life, because that's normally what we tend to do. But I just would like to maybe change the word to something else, more allow, because whatever we avoid, we create resistance. And when we create resistance, we create pain. So pain always comes, suffering, I would say, not pain. Suffering comes from resistance, and resistance comes from avoidance. So if we try to avoid anything, even if we consider it a bad thing, we are creating automatically in a subconscious level resistance to that thing. And that's where it's like, if I say, don't think about elephants, and then we always start to think about elephants, So, there is, I don't think there's such a thing as avoid addiction, because we will always, as I mentioned before, we will always find a way to feel good, to feel comfort in our body. What we can do is to allow the feelings that we are having to have place. But before that, also, we want to provide conditions for our body to be resilient. We want to create resilience within the body and within the mindset. And that's the only way to not experience addiction with, for example, with emotional eating. And there's a few things that we can do. For example, I even put some notes here. Nourishing the family. It's like basic things that are so important, and they create the environment that we need to really have this resilience, this internal resilience. So nourishing a supportive family. So family is an issue for, many people, that I don't have a good relationship with my family. Like, we need to address things, okay? We don't need to, I'm not saying that we need to solve our issues with all the members of our families, but we need to solve our issues internally with us. You know, we want to work on the feelings that we have towards men, especially I'm talking about family because it's something that is a pain point for many people, but it is actually for anyone that we have a relationship with. We want to address these feelings and in an internal, it doesn't need that, you know, you're not going to become best friends with your dad if you haven't talked to your dad for, you know, I don't know, 5 years. But internally, we need to address the relationship that we have with the members of our family. It's something that takes practice, takes professional help, you know, but something that is required to address if this is something that you face in your life. We need to address our needs. We need to start paying attention in what we need at the moment, especially in when we are younger and when we're kids. As a parent, you know, like I don't have kids, but as a parent, it's so important to pay attention and be aware of the needs of the kids, because even if it seems silly for you, these needs, if not addressed in early stage, it gets harder to address. And then we become adults, you know, with our addictions, and then we have to do the work later on. So we need to start addressing the needs. Also, we need to nourish our lives in all aspects possible through food, through eating food, because, you know, more than 80%, I think it's like 85% to 9% of the neurotransmitters in, you know, that help us with our brain functions, they are made up in our guts. And if we don't eat properly, these neurotransmitters, they're not gonna work properly. They're not gonna do their job properly. So we need to eat well. And when I say we need to eat the food, as much food as we can from the natural source, you know, from its natural form. Raw food, we need raw food. And, you know, even if it's cooked, but like more vegetables, more fruits. So we need to nourish, and not only in the nutritional aspect, we need to nourish this with entertainment, with creativity, with spiritual practice. We need to have a spirit. It doesn't mean that you need to be religious. It doesn't need to mean that, you know, you need to join any group or a cult or anything, but we need to address our spirituality. What it does mean is to get some time in a regular basis to feel connected with ourselves, to check on what's going on inside us, you know, because we tend to avoid the feelings. We tend to like do something else because we don't want to feel that way. And the only reason the feelings get stuck there, anxiety, the stress, the sadness, is because we not pay attention to it. It's because we're not allowing them to happen. It sounds contradictory, but it's true. If we allow the feelings to happen, they're not going to be there for a long time. Mm-hmm. So we need to start getting to this spiritual aspect of ourselves, you know, and it doesn't need to be something complex. It literally needs to take time in silence with yourself. And other aspect is to express yourself. Start to talk about what you feel with people. We really need to start talking about what we feel and express ourselves in words through creativity, as I mentioned before. Anyway, it's very different for, you know, for all of us, how we better express ourselves, but it's an essential part, because the body, it's a vessel, right? It's a vessel of infinite creativity. And once we have this vessel clean, we want the things to flow. Things should come inside and leave. Come inside. We want it to flow. Imagine it's a channel that's always with this flow of energy coming in and out. And if we don't express ourselves, don't nourish ourselves, we create blockages in the body. And this creative energy cannot flow through the body as it should. And that's when the problems happen, the paranoias, the suffering, the addictions, and all this stuff happen, you know. And the last thing I would like to mention is the relationships, the social relationships, social community, especially people that resonate with with you, and nourish this community around you, and be part of something, of a social interaction, because we are meant to thrive, but we're meant to thrive together through connections. And so this is all the aspects. So as you can, you know, realize, it's a lot of things. It's not one single answer to get rid of addictions, or to avoid this to happen. You know, it's all these aspects put together, because it is a holistic issue. You know, it's the nourishing with the family, address the needs, nourishing our spirituality, our inner space, express ourselves, nourishing the body, and participate in connectivity with others.
Yes, and it's a lot of internal work. It's not like
Yes.
something easy to do. But Annie, I know you have like many tips for that moment when we are in front of the fridge and we want to go and eat. What can we do at that moment?
There are a few things that we can do. I'm gonna leave a link with you, because I created this. It's a little guide. There's 4 meditations there. They're very useful. It's called Yogic Breathing Journey to end. I think it's to manage emotional eating, and it's very interesting because there are 4 yogic practices there, and it's free. You can just download on the internet. That it has a couple of practices to do when we are in this moment in front of the fridge, and all we can think about is to eat. And they are, we manage our mindset, our state of consciousness through the breath and through a certain way we breathe, but there's a whole yogic science behind it. So it's not just start breathing anyway, you know, you need like a certain practice that activates certain state in the body. So there are things we can do. This yogic breathing. So I'm gonna make it viable for you all. It's called pranayama or pranayama. It's a breathing exercise. And we can also, there are a few things that I like to do, you know. First of all, is to, again, not create resistance. Accept the fact that what you want to do is to eat, you know, because when we start to get into the avoidance and resistance, that's when we're going to probably binge eating the most. So we want to have this mindset of acknowledgement. I think accept, maybe it's a too harsh word for that, especially if you're in that state, because I know I've been there in emotional eating. Sometimes we get blind, we can't think. But if we can not necessarily accept, but acknowledge what we want to do at that moment, that's a big step, you know. So that's how I feel, that's how I want to eat. And then you ask yourself 2 questions. What am I feeling at the moment? Because we want to start paying attention at the feelings. We want to make this a routine, you know, a habit. What am I feeling at the moment? And sometimes the answer is very obvious, sometimes not. So am I feeling anxious? Am I feeling stressed? Am I feeling sad, bored, lonely? What is it for you? And what are the needs? What do I need in order to not feel that way? Not necessarily going to get the need met at that moment, but you will start to create in a subconscious level a understanding of feelings and needs that are not being met. So when later on, you know, in your day, when you decide to take actions and decisions in your day, we start to base this according to the needs that we identified in that moment of practice. So you ask, what do I need? For example, I feel lonely and I feel bored. That's what I want to eat. So my need perhaps is to have more social connection. I need to talk to someone, and I need to use my creativity. You know, I need to find ways to direct my creativity so I don't feel bored. Just examples here.
Yeah.
So you ask yourselves, you acknowledge it, Second, you recognize the feelings, and then you recognize the needs that are not met there. And then, okay, and you can do all of this in a matter of seconds, by the way. It's a long explanation, but it's a very short process with practice. You can do in a few seconds. And then one thing that I do as well is to have a mantra that I can pronounce in my mind. Now, there are a couple of mantras that I like. One is Sat Nam. It's the most used mantra in Kundalini Yoga, which means truth is my identity, or truth is my name. And these mantras, they carry such a powerful energy, and they change they are there to change the direction of our consciousness through sound. So if you repeat the mantra for, I don't know, let's say 30 seconds, Satnam, 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 or the second mantra that I like as well, it's called Wahe Guru. Wahe Guru. I can actually write down here Wahe Guru. Wahe Guru in the comments, so you know what I'm talking about.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
I use it. I sometimes use it.
Ah, nice. It's such a beautiful mantra. It's also very, very well used in Kundalini Yoga, because Waheguru is an expression of ecstasy, is an expression of like a recognition that we are part of something bigger. You know, we are not just like an individual. We're not disconnected. We are connected to something bigger, and it gives us a strength. And we don't need to understand what the mantra means. We don't need to understand. It's nice to know how to pronounce it, because that definitely affects the benefits of the mantra. But we don't need to understand what the mantra means in order to benefit from it, because the mantra is a code. It's a code that our body interprets. It's not our mind that interprets that code. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. So we repeat this mantra. And I like it. It depends on your viability, how willing you, how much time you have at the moment. But I have repeated for a few seconds to 5 minutes, and that will shift something in you. The mantra will shift something in you. And the last thing to do, apart from the breathing exercise as well that I'm going to make available, is the drink water, because a lot of people confuse hunger with thirst. And this happened with my partner. It never happened to me. Like, I know I'm thirsty, but with him, for example,
a lot.
It happens to you.
Yes.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, first time I heard about it, I found it funny, but it actually happens a lot. And I had few conversations with people that say, when I drink water, I realize I'm not hungry. So try to drink a glass of water. Your body's going to thank you anyway, because it's always good to have some water. But yeah, so these things I do before. I suggest you can practice before, when you're in front of the fridge and all you can think about is to eat. Acknowledge, recognize feelings, recognize the needs, have a practice with the mantra, drink water, and you can even practice the breathing, the meditations that in the manual, because they are very effective.
Okay, good. I love those tips. Yes, Annie, we have like 8 minutes. So would you like to show us a meditation we can do for this moment, or just to have a day without cravings?
Yeah, we can do a very easy one together. How are you with time? Do you want me just to demonstrate it, or do you want to practice?
As you wish. I don't know how long it is. We have 8 minutes.
Okay, you can take. Okay, we can practice it in just a couple of times, so you get to know. So it's called Sitali Pranayama, and it's a well-known pranayama. What this pranayama does, it's a breathing technique. So what it does, it cools down our emotions. So if you're feeling anxious or feeling anger, for example, it helps us to give like a refresh touch to our mindset, and settle things down internally. And how we practice is we're gonna breathe in through the mouth and you're gonna breathe in with the tongue like a straw. So it looks like this. Now, some people not able because of genetic, not able to really do this. Just do the best you can. Just make your mouth in an O shape like this and put your tongue. Just do the best you can, you know, don't worry too much if you can't curl the tongue. And you're gonna sleep as if you're drinking the air. And it's going to be very slow, the longest you can, breathing in through this straw of your tongue. And you're gonna exhale very slow through the nose. So inhale through the tongue, exhale through the nose. Now we're gonna close the eyes and focus on, we call the brow point. So this is the space between the two eyebrows. So you don't need to force your eye gaze. You know, a lot of beginners in Kundalini Yoga, they force the eyes too much. It doesn't need that. Just intentionally focus in this area and bring your eye gaze to this area here while you have your eyes closed, your eyelids closed. And yeah, so let's do it together a couple of times. So, you know, you close your eyes. Yeah, so close your eyes, focus the eye gaze up and in towards the brow point, or the third eye point as we call it sometimes, and bring your mouth in your tongue, curl your tongue, and you're gonna start slowly inhale through the tongue. We want to fill all the lungs with the air. And once you finished, once there's no possible to breathe in anymore, you slowly keep the tongue there, but you slowly exhale through the nose. And you're gonna repeat the cycle. Inhale through the mouth, slowly, and then exhale through the nose. Remember to keep your attention in your breathing. Keep your focus on the third eye point. This will help to activate the frontal lobe of the brain, which is the area of the brain that keeps responsible for emotional control. So keep breathing slowly through the tongue. Exhale through the nose. And once you finish your cycle of breath, you can open your eyes. And as you see, this is a very simple technique, and you can practice it for you can start with 3 minutes, let's say. So it's really good for those moments that you don't have much time. You're like, I want to eat something, I'm almost eating my table here. You go and practice techniques. It's going to help you. And yeah, and important as well, whenever is you're feeling your body, you're in that moment of meditation, make sure your body has alignment. The spine is straight, and you have the alignment is very important during the meditation. Okay. It helps us to really get the benefits.
Okay. Well, I liked it very much. Thank you, Annie, for all your tips.
Thank you for the opportunity. I really, really appreciate that, to have this conversation.
I've learned a lot as I learned in Australia.
Yes, thank you so much. And if anyone has any questions, just send me or post here in the video, and Ceci can let me know, or I can see, because then I can answer later. Can I quickly talk about just a challenge that I'm making?
Yes, of course. We have 3 minutes.
Okay. So there is a challenge on my Facebook group. It's called From Emotional Eating to a Yogic Conscious Eating. And this is a 5-day challenge. It's a free challenge. The participants have a chance to win a coaching with me, a strategic coaching valued in $300. So It's just for who is participating. It's for free. You can register there. And the aim of this challenge is to build an action plan for you to transition from emotional eating into yogic conscious eating, where we use food for joy, for health, and for spiritual growth. Now, if you find this conversation interesting, I am sure you're gonna love this challenge because it's all about it. We're gonna go in depth on a lot of things we talk about here, and it's 5 day, 1 hour a day. So you're welcome to join. I'm gonna give the link to Ceci, and she can post here somewhere.
Great. I will post.
Thank you.
Well, now I try to do my best to download the video, but I don't know if I will be able to do it. I know I can post it in my Instagram, but now I want to download it too so that I can send it to you. Yes?
Yeah, that would be nice to send this video to the Facebook group. So yeah, let's see how it goes.
Great. Well,
Thank
Annie,
you,
thank you very much. It was so nice to be with you.
Yeah, really nice. And yeah, let's organize more talks in the future.
Yes, yes, of course.
And
Thank
have a
you.
good night to you all because it's night there. Yeah, it's a
Yes, have a
beautiful
good
morning.
day. So strange.
Yeah.
Okay. Bye.
Okay, bye.
Thanks to all of you, the ones who were listening too. Bye.
Bye.